Hey, not Green's favorite podcast. Happens to be the only one, but you know, we'll live with that for now. Tonight, we have a returning champion, uh, Tyson, coming back to us. Uh, he was on last week, filled in for Will. Will is out this week, so Tyson's back. How you doing, Tyson?
I'm doing fantastic. It's been a beautiful day outside. Finally, some sunny weather after last week's monsoon disaster. I've been enjoying it.
Dude, I hear that, man. Like we needed some nice weather. And we also have another special guest on because our other host, Tyler, the creator, is out. Today we have Wicked Spursy's own Steve. How you doing, Stevie?
I'm doing great, Mike. I was just sitting here wondering if you're Vermont Green's favorite podcast and you're the only podcast, does that also make you the least favorite podcast?
Yeah, it does make us the least favorite podcast as well. But
Man, these default titles are really sticking it to you, huh?
they get you coming and going, Steve. As they
I
say.
know, I know. All
How,
too well.
yeah, how you been, man?
Hey, pretty good. It was, just to chime in with everybody else. Weather's been fantastic. Nice to see some sun. A little sad to see that it goes away just in time for the weekend, but I'll take what I can get for now.
Yeah, I mean, we do have a weekend match coming up, so we'll get into that a little bit later. But for me, again, I had to sit for about, I don't know, 14 hours last week in that rain, through Lucas's soccer tournaments, down at the tree farm, and then in that torrential downpour that came down the second half against Western Mass Pioneers. But again, yeah, sunny. It's nice to see the sun, and it's nice to get back to actual, like, approaching summer temperatures. So on the first day of summer, nope, second day of summer. There you go. I blew that one. The solstice was last night, and that's probably why we had the result we had, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
what other reason is there?
there isn't any other reason. Oh yeah, right. Wait, the team was good. The team was good. But let's start off. Let's break down this Western Mass game because there's been a couple of things that have been bothering me. And it's kind of revolves around the overall refereeing job that's been taking place in USL2 and beyond even. We saw, like, even up into Champions League, we saw in European football, we saw Jose Mourinho lose his mind on a referee. And today he quit his board position at UEFA. I mean, so it even goes up to those high levels of high level professional football. But that's kind of been eating at me a little bit, especially that Western Mass game. But Tyson, do you want to get us rolling here on kind of what you saw in that game?
Well, I think that in terms of the way that the Green go about kind of doing their pressing and attacking, we saw in the game yesterday against Boston exactly what the Green were trying to do against Western Mass, but couldn't do against Western Mass, which is be able to push the ball up the field through the flanks, but then be able to get balls into the middle, into the dangerous places, not necessarily just through, crosses or kind of long, hopeful balls that weren't really on target, which is what happened against the Pioneers. But against Boston, we were able to get good, incisive passing that opened up shots for Bilal Kamal. And, Zange had a couple, they may have been long range attempts, but that's exactly what we were trying to do against Western Mass. And we couldn't just because, honestly, the standard of defending for Western Mass versus Boston, the Boston Bolts, very, very different. But I think that we really didn't seem like we had a plan B against Western Mass. We had all the possession, we had all of the kind of attacking thrust, but no one was able to break down that kind of low central block that they had right in front of the goal.
Yeah, I totally agree. A lot of pressing from Western Mass, like straight off the top. And then for some reason they kind of abandoned that. Um, probably about 20 minutes in after they had scored that goal. I think that Vermont's issue, like you said, getting the ball in was pretty tough. But I think they had a lot of they had all of the better chances, with the exception of a couple of chances that Christopherson, ushered away in the second half. There were a couple of really good chances, but outside of that first half, Vermont Green were dominant. Shots were 11-1. That one goal that went in, and that was just kind of that was a bad ball from Messer, that went in and got intercepted and brought back across and caught Zach Barrett and Nate Jones out of position at that time, because they thought they were moving forward in attack. It just, and then the rest of the game, like the referee
the ball literally deflected off of a Green player directly in front. It fell directly to a Western Mass player who smoked it in. And other than that, they didn't really have any kind of attack. It was pure luck.
And yeah, I think that allowed them to just kind of sit back, waste time. The referee let the game get out of hand, which really, there were a couple of easy red cards for me in that game. And one was the challenge on Dylan Lane, that he got taken down from behind. And it was, there were some cynical challenges, as they say, right? The cynical challenge. But the referee let the game get out of hand, and that, I think, he took the game from Vermont Green. That, on top of the weather, was not good. So, sitting back and defending is much easier when you have a team that's, trying all they can to attack, and you have the rain kind of on your side. What do you think about that, Steve?
Yeah, I think, Tyson, what you said about the lack of a plan B was incredibly apparent. What Vermont Green does, they do incredibly well, easily one of the best, if not the best, in our division by a mile. Even the 3-1 loss that we had against, Seacoast was almost like a fluke, right? Like a lot of the work that the Green were doing is in that, attacking, pressing, hounding, and it's effective, except when it's not, there's nothing else really for them to do. It's like they don't really have any idea of well, okay, now what? If we give them the ball and we let them onto us, then we're on the back foot, and that's less comfortable. So it's just an unfortunate situation where against Western Mass, yeah, they got their lucky goal and they didn't really need to do anything else because they packed the box, they kept the ball out. Green didn't have any other creative options going on. You can change personnel, but the tactics were relatively consistent. It's tough, man. It's really tough, but you get those sometimes. Sometimes the luck goes against you. I do agree that the ref did kind of make some really questionable calls there. I don't typically like to blame the ref because, it's kind of the same on both sides, but on both sides of the ball, he was terrible.
Steve, you're supposed to agree with me. I feel like you're just leaving me hanging.
It's just one of those things, right? And it's kind of funny, just speaking as like a supporter sitting in the stands with the atmosphere. I have to say, games aside, I just love the energy that the Green brings to the community. Everybody is just getting up on their feet. They're yelling, they're cheering, they're going after the ref for the exact same thing. The funny thing to me is, there are few and far between people who understand why they're going after the ref. It's just like they're doing something wrong. We got to get after him. But
our guy fell down.
yeah. but but that's part of the community building, right? Like that's what makes Vermont Green such a special team for me personally, is like everything settles down and then, my wife will come over and like, okay, so what happened there? Or, somebody, a couple rows back, it's like, oh yeah, that was an offside decision. This is what offside means. Like it helps me to kind of explain what's going on, and then they start to understand it. And that just kind of solidifies the love for it. So in my opinion, I think we saw a lot of that love transition from Western Mass into what we saw just yesterday against Boston, because that to me is what helps push the team forward. The weather having an impact, yeah, it sucks to play in. It's really difficult to control the ball, to understand where it's going to go, especially at this level of play. But it also is difficult when you don't quite have that crowd support behind you that you're used to. I mean, sellout crowd on a Wednesday night, incredible. You get maybe half of that, if I'm being generous, on a rainy Saturday. It's got to have some kind of a psychological impact on the players as well. They're pushing for it. They want to get the results. The guys, the players, they're incredibly humble. They know how much it means to the community. Unfortunately, against Western Mass, they just couldn't get it. Not for lack of trying. It just wasn't their night.
And like, honestly, I do feel like I have to say that, like, at this level of competitive soccer, competitive football, the whatever ref you get, that's a total crapshoot. They're all part-timers. This is not their full-time job. They can't, say, I'm going to do this day in, day out. I will know how to, correctly interpret every single rule. I will, keep control of the game because this is my job. Like, for all we know, this guy, is the manager of the Bennington Dunkin' Donuts. You have no idea who you're going to get. So I feel like, yes, we can blame the ref. Yes, there are some bad calls, but at the end of the day, you're still going to have to beat the team that's put in front of you.
And they didn't, and they just didn't. Like there were a lot of those crosses that were finding no one. There were a lot of chances on the inside that just weren't falling. I mean, we had plenty of opportunities to score, and for whatever reason, things just didn't fall our way. And that's football, though. That's why we keep coming back. Outside of our love for the team, right, for the club. And one of the reasons we keep coming back is that you never know what's going to happen at a soccer game.
Yeah, and frankly, for some of these younger guys, these new timers to the team, it's a learning experience for them too. Like, yeah, they've played their collegiate sport during the school year, but it's a different atmosphere, especially when you're a team like the Green, who's used to being so dominant, steamrolling players. When things don't go your way, it's something else you have to figure out as a person, as a player. It's not something that just comes naturally. You really need to have it in you to kind of double down, find that optimism, find that perseverance, and really push for it. And when you're not used to having to do that, it can be difficult. It really is. Not that I know, because when I played soccer, my team always lost, so I was kind of used to losing. But it helped me persevere anyway. Like, I still had fun with it, but it is something you do need to learn. It's a psychological barrier that some of these guys need to overcome.
Well, then speaking of that, let's move on to something more fun to talk about, which was last night's match. I love Bazzini.
Yeah,
like something that we were kind of missing from that Western Mass game was that large presence, the true number 9, sitting there in front of goal, and and playing hold up, and being able to take some of those headers that were, or some of those crosses, and head them in, or play the ball to feet, and make a turn, and make the right decision on whether to shoot or pass. Like we had been missing that a little bit, and nothing, not to take anything away from, you know, from Alfie at all. But last night Bazzini's debut turned out to be all we knew it could be, with a guy his size and his skill level. I really think that, like, last night, coming out party for him. And in my mind, it was him. It was Musa and Dai was huge. I think, like, everybody on the team had basically everybody on the team had a good game. I think that Nate Jones, like, I named myself Nate Jones, is massive. I think that he's a rock in that box. The way that he positions his body, the way that he moves with the ball. And last night, like you said, Tyson, like, was a perfect example of what they're trying to do against Western Mass. And I think you need a game against a team like this to kind of teach yourself how to move within that system as a player. You saw at times, you saw Barrett getting way forward. You saw Nate Jones getting way forward. Nate Jones was in the box a few times. I mean, in this type of a system, like the way that we defend so high, it I think allows for your center backs to actually become more involved in the attack, and I love it. I just love it.
And, honestly, I think that one of the things that really stood out to me the most is that Bazzini scored 3 very different goals from, we had the kind of poacher's goal where the ball fell into, the penalty box after the corner. Everything was just stirring around. He saw it. He made the first move, lashed it in. We had, I think that the second one was a header from across, right? I watched the game again this afternoon, but yeah, great header. And then the third was just a classic, running down the channel off the shoulder of the center back, beautiful pass and move to get onto that great finish. 3 very different goals. And, I think the thing that really struck me, and kind of like the difference between him and Nacho, who I love, who I think he still has 5 goals this year for us, Nacho. Nacho is like, he's an attack dog. He goes out there, he is pressing the defensive midfield of the opposition. He is pressing their defense. He is getting balls back. He is going and getting down and dirty. Bazzini, yeah, he'll go and like lay in a tackle, but I don't see that same kind of like pressing forward mentality from him, which is totally fine because the rest of the midfield and the rest of the defense does that for the Green, and he's there solely thinking about attack. When you
have guys like Nacho and Dylan Lane to do the pressing, your number nine can be that guy that can receive the ball to the foot and be a playmaker if he has to, or be a straight up shooter. And dude, that finish on that breakaway goal was something else, man. I mean, that was a nice finish.
Yeah, but the other thing that it does, somebody like Bazzini, he opens up space in the field that wouldn't otherwise be open if everybody was pressing, right? When you've got that constant press, it gets really compact, which does work to the Greens. It works out for them because they do get wide players out to receive those balls and take advantage of the space that's left in the channels, but there's nobody centrally that can really take advantage of that. And when he comes in, it's just an added layer of depth, right? Not only do you have that midfield press that's kind of bringing everything tight. Like I could count, dozens of times in the first half alone where D'Agostini was just by himself waiting to receive the ball. And then right directly in line with him, you have Bazzini, who's, holding up two defenders there, keeping them honest, keeping them, a little bit further back from the rest of the midfield. That's the type of play that, boom, 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 you've got three passes and all of a sudden you're in, you're creating those chances. Some unselfish play that maybe certain guys could have, been a little bit more selfish, taking the shots instead of trying to be a little too fancy in and around the box. But that's what you love to see from the team, though, right? You love to see them opening spaces for each other, making use of those, triangles that you see. They drill it in at such a young level. It's just great to see that level of cohesion amongst the team. And yeah, to me, he does open things up just enough to make it that much more effective. But he's a different type of player, right? He slots in, he offers something different. Nacho slots in, he's a completely different guy. He's going to offer something completely different, which is frankly what you need, right? We were talking just a few minutes ago about not having that plan B. Now we have a plan B. If Bassini's not cutting it, swap him out, get somebody else in there and really try to force the issue a bit more. If that doesn't work, then you've got the Bazzini type to come in there and be that target man, right? So hopefully with, the last half of the season coming down, we'll see a little bit more of that, like plug and play. Let's try to shift things around, shift our personnel based on, what kind of defense we're playing against, what kind of team formation, tactics, and hopefully it makes us more effective.
Yeah, I think that in the end, like you said, that as the season goes on, you are gonna shift team players. You are gonna shift your tactics. You have to, in order to keep things fresh, because you don't want to become predictable, right? As a team. The other thing that I think that is really important in this league, in my mind, is that you have to win your home games. It's an absolute imperative. Like, you have to win your home games, because if you don't, then you have to go and play those other good teams on the road. It's fine to be a good road team, but you have to win those home games, because there's no guarantees, no matter how good you're playing at the time, that you're going to go on the road and win those games. So games against Western Mass, games against Pathfinder, AC Connecticut, those the other two middle table teams, those are going to be super important too. But you have to win those home games, and I think that you can get healthy playing a team like Boston, either the Boston teams, Albany, but you never know what you're going to get against a Pathfinder, against a Connecticut. You play them once. So there's no, like I said, there's no guarantees in the end. So we're looking forward to this weekend, right?
Yes, we are. It's supposed to pour again, but it's going to be our one game against AC Connecticut in their faux AC Milan logo and jersey, apparently. It still kind of disgusts me. I'm just going and looking at it right here on the schedule, and it's just, at least like everyone else, Western Mass, they've got their flaming soccer ball. The Bolts, they have their, kind of faux San Diego Chargers logo. Like, everyone's got something unique. And then AC Connecticut, it's just straight up ripping off Serie A.
They don't even try, do they? Like,
no.
That's enough to piss you off. Oh man. So yeah, I mean, Connecticut, I don't know anything about this team. I didn't do my research. I usually do my research. I didn't do my research today. Steve, did you do any research?
Surprisingly a little bit. Yeah. I know enough that they're sniffing at the heels. They're in that, top half of the very small table, but they're not that far behind, two results going in their favor and against us, and they swap positions. But the entire league's kind of like that, with so few games and so few teams. Like you were saying, every single point counts, especially the home games. I think this is going to be a big home game. Absolutely. Each of them are, but when you've got another rainy day forecast, and we were talking about some potential psychological issues of not maybe having as many supporters, rallying behind you and trying to push that momentum forward, it's going to be crucial that this team goes out there and they apply that pressure, keep the pressure, and do not let Connecticut in the game. It could very easily be another Western Mass type situation where just a fluke goal putting them ahead turns into just disaster. Because are we going to be able to do that again? On the flip side, hopefully they would have experienced that not too long ago and would be able and willing to show that, hey, you know what, we can do something with this. I do think that from what I've seen of the Green this season, they have an incredible bounce back mentality. When something doesn't go their way, they turn it around quickly. We saw it midweek, 3-0. Yes, you can talk about the quality of the opposition, but even past that, like after the Seacoast loss, they went on a string of really convincing great wins. I would expect to see something similar against Connecticut. And Connecticut, they're not a bad team by any stretch of the imagination. They will be tough. But I don't really feel as nervous about it as I might if, we were on a winning streak going into it. Like that to me feels like the perfect game to trip up. But because we're on the back of a loss, we just had that bounce back win. I think we're going to see some of that momentum start to pick up. I think we're going to see the Green take it to Connecticut, and I think we're going to come away with another win.
And I'm just right here, just looking at Connecticut's past couple of games. Basically, they have either drawn, lost by one, won by one in every single game, except when they beat Boston City 4-0. So I feel like this is a team, and they also have not played either Western Mass or Seacoast yet. So basically, they're at 3 wins, 3 draws, 2 losses, playing essentially the bottom feeders of our very small league. We're the first of the top 3 teams that they're playing. I think that if they were coming away with a huge goal differential against any of these kind of not as good teams, let's be honest, I'd be a lot more concerned. I agree with you, Steve. I think that this is a really good opportunity for the Green to go out and kind of put the bogey of the garbage weather to rest.
Okay. Again, I don't like to make predictions.
That Seacoast game got you shook.
It did, man. It did.
And we got revenge for them coming up at the end of the month. Just give it a week.
Mm-hmm.
Listen, I talked to a couple of the players last night. Some bolts coming out of the parking lot, and I said, what's the hardest team to play in this league? They said Western Mass. And I said, which team do you hate to play the most? They said Seacoast because they're dirty.
Yep,
because they're dirty players.
Yeah.
So I said, what's the most fun to play? And he said Vermont Green. They said Vermont Green. It happened to be our friend number 6 that we gave a lot of crap to.
Oh yeah.
That poor right back. We give a lot of crap to him, and he took it well, and he was laughing after the game. But in the end, we have to remember these are all kids, right? But I can't. I'm trying to stay away from making a boneheaded prediction. So
I'll throw you a softball, Mike. I'll throw you a softball. There's another very important game coming up in our division that's not the Green. Tomorrow,
1-1.
Tomorrow, Pioneers play Seacoast. Who do you have for that one? You feel comfortable about making a prediction there?
It's a 1-1 draw.
I would love a 1-1 draw. That would be great.
That would be the best for us, for our club. But I think that's going to be a really hard fought game. I think that both those teams don't have any fear. Like I don't think Vermont Green fears any team. I don't think those other two teams fear any teams. Uh, when when they're on the road or at home. So, and I think that's what sets these top three teams apart from the other teams in this league is that they don't have any fear going into games. They know that their players are all very good. And that no matter who they put on the field, it's going to be a good product on the field. It wasn't like we got blown out against Seacoast. It was one goal that led to floodgates opening because they sat back and played defense.
It was one very good goal from Seacoast, and then two kind of garbage,
fluky goals. Because we didn't defend well on corners. Right. So like we dominated the game against Western Mass too. I mean, like the time of possession. I mean, we were looking at probably 60-40 on possession. So I mean, both those games, Vermont Green, I think, is a team that will go out there, they'll dominate the game in possession, which usually yields results. I mean, Pep Guardiola will tell you, his system works. He also ruins soccer because he doesn't let his players shoot from, outside the box. But that's just my theory. I think that this game is going to be very telling and it's going to show us what's going to happen for the rest of the season. And if we happen to come away with a win in the shitty weather, I think that we're going to go on a run of games where we're going to be ranked in the top 10 in the power rankings in the nation if we come away with a win.
I mean, I think that, just kind of looking at
we have Seacoast coming up again.
Yes, we've got the away game versus Seacoast. We've got BlackRock. We've got the away game against Pioneers. Then Pathfinder in Boston. We've got 3 home games left, including the game on Saturday. I mean, if we come out of this with, no more than, 1 loss or 1 draw, I think that sets us up really, really well for the end of the year to be, if not one of the top 2 teams.
Yep. Steve-O?
Yes, Mike.
You look like you're deep in thought, like you got something on your mind, like you want to say. But here's the thing: we're coming up on time, so what I do want to do is get to some final thoughts, and those can be anything that you want to talk about. It doesn't have to be about soccer. It doesn't have to be about Vermont Green. If you got something on your mind, let's talk about it because we know that these podcasts can be also therapy, not just us gloating about our team or bitching about the performance that was put in the week before. So I want to go to Steve first with his final thoughts.
Yeah, and I think I'm just going to echo some of my thoughts from earlier in the show, and just that I really have a great appreciation for the Green community. Everybody that shows up at the games, sellout crowd or not, it's always, respectful people, whether it's their first time at a Green game or their, 20th time, it really doesn't make a difference. Everybody acts the same. They're excited. They're energized. They want to feel that camaraderie. And you start to recognize people like, we've been sitting, my family and I, we've been sitting in the same spot all season pretty much. And we're recognizing that some of the people around us, some of the families that we get, they're the same people. So we start to see them, we start to make those connections. And it's just a really beautiful thing to have that, right? Like, yeah, we're season ticket holders, but like at a big club where they've got like assigned seats and you've got your season ticket, you go and you sit in your spot and those people. it's a little bit different, right? Like we don't have those assigned seats. We get our season tickets. We could sit wherever, and a lot of these people are choosing to be in the same places, and they're building that stuff. I think that's such a fantastic thing. But not just that, like scrolling through the Greens Instagram, their stories that they've shared, other people who have tagged them. I recognize people like, hey, I used to work with that guy. Hey, we used to be neighbors. Hey, I know you from the restaurant down the street. Like, it's just such an incredible feeling. It's something that I've been missing. Having lived in Vermont for the last, I don't know, 14, 15 years at this point. Having grown up in New Jersey and having a bit more competitive sports just in my backyard, it's nice to have finally something that achieves that level of competition for me, that level of community. So I'm just very appreciative of everything that the Green has done, everything that the community has brought to it, and I hope it lasts for many years to come.
Awesome. Tyson?
I mean, just kind of talking about community. Community is, something that I feel like people are seeking that out, and we're finding it at these games with the Vermont Green. I mean, at the game yesterday, I remember, we were singing along in a corner, and I turned around, and you know what? For the first time that I really noticed, there were all the other folks who were in the South stands with us, not right on the rails with the Green Mountain Boys, but all the people sitting in the back stands were joining in with the LA chants. We got a wave going. Jason was going and running back and forth in front of everybody, getting it going from one end of the stadium to the other. I feel like the Green Mountain Boys and the Vermont Green is definitely a community that I am super happy and super proud to be a part of. And I feel that, there's got to be more people who are coming to these games who get to experience the atmosphere, just enjoy being out in a beautiful field with other beautiful people watching the beautiful game who are finding their community. And like, that's awesome. That's such a privilege to be a part of. And, I can't wait to be out there on Saturday.
Totally agree. My final thoughts, I had these picked out before we got on today. So it's pretty amazing that like we all have this kind of same thought process going on. And that was in our other podcast, we sometimes get comments about how we don't understand we don't necessarily understand Tottenham Hotspur because, and you see it on Twitter all the time, and I know Twitter's a cesspool, but yeah, and you see this stuff, but you don't understand because you're American. You don't understand what it's like, because we bitch and complain as Spurs fans, not just about our club, but about the ownership group and all this. And we don't bitch about that, about the ownership group, the same way that people from London who live there and live in those communities do. And we say, this is an owner, he's not going to change his mind. You're not going to get him to change his mind. We have different thought processes on, hashtag Levy out or whatever it might be, Glazers out if you're a Man U fan. We don't have that same sense of community, but we do now. These are the things that soccer can and sport can do for a community. I think soccer, mostly because I think soccer has probably the most passionate fans in the world. It's the largest sport in the world, and I think that soccer is able to build community like any other sport can. And we have found that, and now, like, for myself, for my family, we can experience what those folks who grew up in North London, those folks that grew up in like Brighton and Brentford and the smaller towns, Coventry, and Reading, like those guys, that's their community club. Whether you have that $1 billion stadium, like the Emirates or like Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, or it you still have that sense of community because those clubs are community-based clubs. And what Vermont Green has done for us has given us that opportunity to have that same feeling, to fall in love with something and have the passion for a sport, not just a sport, but for a club, for a group of folks. And we have the added bonus of it being pre-professional, so that we get to fall in love with a new group of players every single year, and some returning players. And I just love that about Vermont Green. And as much as like we might have a down season here and there, that's part of the ride that you go on. And they've built a bigger community for everybody. And like you said, everybody is getting involved now. Everybody's getting involved, and it's really, really wonderful. And I have to thank all of you guys, and I have to thank the Vermont Green for that. And I have to thank all these players. Vermont Green is massive everywhere we go.
Well
So-
said.
So for that, we're gonna sign off. Tyson, any last words?
No, I think we all put it pretty well. All
right.
all of us on the back.
All right, Steven, any
Yeah.
any final words?
Yeah, I got to give thanks to Wicked Spursy Dave for letting me out of the cage on this one, and footing the bill for my billable hour. I'll just send it to the Wicked Spursy Finance Department. I'm sure we'll cover it, right?
Yeah, I could talk to the finance guys and see what we can do for you.
Yeah, Dave, get the checkbook out.
I will thank Dave as well for showing up and coming and staying in that rainy weather and watching the match with us last week. It was a pleasure to hang out with him and hang out with all of you guys, and introducing him to some of our Green Mountain boys. So Dave will definitely be back up. And until that time, I just want to say, be safe, everyone. The world is crazy out there. So just be safe and up the green.